Welcome back to the war. Imagine a world where a handful of men hold the power to unleash chaos and reshape history. Today, we're diving into the lives of Hitler's most dangerous allies, men whose actions led to some of the darkest moments humanity has ever known. But who were they really? What drove them to commit such horrors? And how did they rise to power in a regime built on fear and fanaticism? Join us at Legacy of War as we expose the chilling stories of the men who helped bring the Nazi vision to life. Stories that history tried to bury. Before we start the video, don't forget to check out our selection of playlists. We cover other wars like Vietnam, the World Wars, as well as Viking and Roman times. We will also be adding to our collection soon. Make sure you like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now relax and enjoy the video. That's in order. Heinrich Himmler, the engineer of terror. Heinrich Himmler, a man once described as the embodiment of bureaucratic evil, was the mastermind behind the most sinister aspects of the Nazi regime. A mild-mannered chicken farmer before his rise to power, Himmler would go on to oversee the creation of concentration camps and the orchestrated genocide of millions. But how did a man with such an unassuming background become one of the most feared and loathed figures in history? Heinrich Himmler was born on October 7, 1900, in Munich, Germany. His father was a school teacher, and his family background was relatively normal, yet Himmler would become anything but. After serving in the First World War, he joined the Nazi Party in 1923 and quickly ascended the ranks due to his organizational skills and fanatical loyalty to Adolf Hitler. Himmler's initial role within the Nazi Party was modest. He was a personal assistant to Gregor Strasser, a high-ranking Nazi official. However, his potential was soon recognized by Hitler, who appointed him head of the SS, or Schutzstaffel, in 1929. Under Himmler's leadership, the SS evolved from a small paramilitary group into a sprawling empire that operated as the Nazi regime's enforcers, wielding unparalleled power. One of Himmler's most significant contributions to the Nazi regime was the creation of the concentration camp system. Initially set up to imprison political opponents, these camps quickly expanded their scope to include Jews, Romani people, homosexuals, and anyone else deemed undesirable by the regime. The SS, under Himmler's direction, was responsible for administering these camps, where millions were tortured, starved, and murdered. Himmler was not just a bureaucrat of death, he was also a fervent believer in the Nazi racial ideology. He spearheaded the so-called final solution, the plan to systematically exterminate the Jewish population of Europe. As head of the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, Himmler had nearly unlimited power to pursue this genocidal vision. His involvement in the Holocaust makes him one of the most notorious war criminals of the 20th century. Despite his immense power, Himmler remained relatively unknown to the public for much of his career. He preferred to operate in the shadows, letting his subordinates, like Reinhard Heydrich, take the spotlight. However, within the Nazi inner circle, he was one of Hitler's most trusted and influential advisors. In the final days of World War II, as the Third Reich crumbled, Himmler attempted to distance himself from the regime. He sought to negotiate with the Allies, even suggesting that he could take over the German government and make peace. This betrayal infuriated Hitler, who stripped Himmler of all his titles. Disgraced and on the run, Himmler was captured by British forces in May 1945. Rather than face justice, he committed suicide by ingesting cyanide. Himmler's legacy is one of unrelenting cruelty and precision-engineered evil. His role in the atrocities of the Holocaust has made him synonymous with the horrors of the Nazi regime, a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. Joseph Goebbels, the master of propaganda. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's closest confidant and the architect of Nazi propaganda, wielded the power of words to devastating effect. A master manipulator of public opinion, Goebbels transformed the German media landscape into a tool of the Nazi agenda, ensuring that the regime's message penetrated every aspect of life in the Third Reich. But what drove this highly educated man to dedicate his life to such a destructive cause? Joseph Goebbels was born on October 29, 1897, in Reit, Germany. Unlike many of his Nazi contemporaries, Goebbels came from an educated and relatively affluent background. He was a gifted student, eventually earning a PhD in literature and philosophy. However, his physical disability, a clubfoot, kept him from serving in World War I, which left him with a deep sense of resentment and a desire to prove himself. Goebbels joined the Nazi Party in 1924, drawn to its nationalist rhetoric and charismatic leader, Adolf Hitler. His talents as a speaker and writer quickly became apparent, and he rose through the party ranks to become the Gauleiter, or regional leader, of Berlin. It was in this role that Goebbels honed his skills in propaganda, using speeches, rallies, and publications to galvanize support for the Nazis. In 1933, when Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, Goebbels was appointed Minister of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment. This position gave him control over all forms of media in Germany, including newspapers, radio, film, and the arts. Goebbels understood the power of propaganda in shaping public perception and used his position to craft the image of Hitler as the savior of Germany. He orchestrated massive rallies, such as the Nuremberg rallies, that were designed to create a sense of unity and purpose among the German people. Goebbels was also the driving force behind the Nazis' use of anti-Semitic propaganda. He played a key role in the Kristallnacht pogrom in 1938, which marked the beginning of the violent persecution of Jews in Germany. Goebbels' propaganda machine demonized Jews, portraying them as the root of all Germany's problems and justifying their eventual extermination. Throughout the war, Goebbels continued to use propaganda to maintain public morale and support for the war effort, even as Germany faced defeat. He was a master of manipulating public sentiment, using fear, pride, and hate to keep the populace in line. His speeches and broadcasts became increasingly desperate as the war turned against Germany, but he never wavered in his loyalty to Hitler. In the final days of the war, as Berlin was surrounded by Allied forces, Goebbels remained with Hitler in the Führerbunker. He refused to contemplate surrender, insisting that they should fight to the bitter end. After Hitler's suicide on April 30th, 1945, Goebbels followed suit, killing his 6 children before committing suicide with his wife on May 1st, 1945. His death marked the end of the Nazi propaganda machine, but the impact of his work would echo through history. Joseph Goebbels' legacy is one of manipulation and deceit on a massive scale. He turned the tools of communication into weapons of control, using them to enforce the Nazi ideology and carry out some of the most heinous crimes in history. His life is a stark reminder of the power of propaganda and the dangers of allowing it to go unchecked. Hermann Goring, the greedy general. Hermann Goring, a World War I flying ace-turned-Nazi leader, was one of Hitler's earliest supporters and became one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. Known for his extravagant lifestyle and ruthless ambition, Goring played a key role in the establishment of the Nazi police state and the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. But behind the flamboyant facade lay a man whose actions would help unleash a war that brought devastation across Europe. Hermann Goring was born on January 12, 1893, into an aristocratic family. His father was a former colonial governor, and Goring enjoyed a privileged upbringing. He developed a passion for the military at a young age and joined the Prussian army in 1912. During World War I, Goring served as a fighter pilot and became a decorated war hero, a status that he would later use to bolster his political career. After the war, Goring struggled to find direction. He briefly worked as a commercial pilot and even joined a Swedish circus. However, his life changed in 1922 when he attended a speech by Adolf Hitler. Inspired by Hitler's vision, Goring joined the Nazi Party and quickly became one of Hitler's most trusted lieutenants. He participated in the failed beer hall putsch in 1923, where he was wounded and had to flee Germany for a time. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, Goring was appointed as Minister of the Interior for Prussia, where he established the Gestapo, the secret police force that would become synonymous with Nazi terror. Goring also played a key role in the purging of the SA, the Nazi paramilitary wing, during the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, solidifying the SS's dominance and his own power within the regime. One of Goring's most significant contributions to the Nazi war machine was his role in creating the Luftwaffe. As the head of the German Air Force, Goring oversaw its expansion and modernization in the years leading up to World War II. The Luftwaffe was a central component of Hitler's Blitzkrieg strategy, and Goring was initially hailed as a military genius. However, his reputation suffered after the Luftwaffe's failure in the Battle of Britain, where he overpromised and underdelivered on the air campaign. Goering was also a key figure in the Nazi regime's economic policies. He was appointed as the head of the four-year plan, which aimed to make Germany self-sufficient and ready for war. In this role, Goering controlled vast resources and industries, using his position to amass personal wealth and indulge in his extravagant tastes. His love of luxury was legendary. He amassed a vast collection of stolen art and lived in opulent estates, all while millions suffered under the regime he helped create. As the war turned against Germany, Goering's influence waned. His failures in military leadership, combined with his notorious greed and corruption, led to a loss of favor with Hitler. In the final days of the Third Reich, Goering attempted to position himself as Hitler's successor, sending a telegram to Hitler on April 23, 1945, suggesting that he take over the leadership of Germany as Hitler was incapacitated in the besieged Führerbunker. However, this move was seen as a betrayal, and Hitler ordered Goering's arrest. Although Goering had been one of the most powerful men in the Nazi hierarchy, by the end of the war, he was a shadow of his former self. After the war, Goering was captured by the Allies and became one of the main defendants at the Nuremberg trials. During the trials, he tried to defend his actions, arguing that he had simply been following orders and that he had acted in the interests of Germany. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. He was found guilty of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and conspiracy to commit these crimes. Goering was sentenced to death, but he committed suicide by cyanide poisoning on the night of October 15, 1946, just hours before he was due to be hanged. Goering's legacy is one of ambition, greed, and complicity in some of the worst atrocities of the 20th century. He was a man who craved power and luxury, and he was willing to support and carry out the most heinous acts to maintain his position within the Nazi regime. His life serves as a cautionary tale of the corrupting influence of power and the dangers of unchecked ambition. As we've uncovered, Himmler, Goebbels, and Goering were not just followers of Hitler. They were key players who actively shaped the Nazi regime's brutal policies and propaganda. Their actions were driven by ambition, fanaticism, and a chilling disregard for human life. But the story doesn't end here. In Part 2, we'll dive even deeper into the shadowy figures who operated behind the scenes, pulling the strings of the Nazi war machine. Who will be in Part 2 of Hitler's Inner Circle? These are the men who, despite being less visible, were no less influential in the horrors that unfolded. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when Part 2 drops. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Check back in again soon. Salute.